Hello everybody. I would like to make this broadcast about an extremely important issue, and this is an issue that a lot of misinformation is spread about, and that is the issue of Israel, Jerusalem, Temple Mount, and so on. And most chances is that if you get your information from mainstream media, your chances of hearing truth about the subject are close to zero. And by truth, I mean even the most basic facts are twisted, are misinterpreted for very deranged agendas. And first and foremost, I want to start by saying that the issue of Temple Mount in Jerusalem is not just a religious issue. It's not, I would even say that today it's not even a specifically Israeli issue. The conflict is often described as a conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, Israelis and Muslims and so on, Jews against Muslims and so on, but this is not so. This is a global issue. And the current situation currently on Temple Mount is that the mountain is taken claim by terrorist organizations, two terrorist organizations. One of them is PLO, one of them is Hamas. None of them are, so to say, exactly Muslim. And they do so by spreading tremendous amounts of disinformation about the subject, even basic facts. And the thing is that this does not apply only to Israel. Today, this is a global issue. Because the process that we see in Jerusalem, the process we see on Temple Mount, starts to replicate itself in other countries in the world over places that nobody ever considered, let's say a few decades ago, that would face this kind of problems. For instance, in Europe, in Paris, in Sweden, in London, in Berlin, places which were predominantly European, predominantly non-Muslim, of course Western culture, are currently being simply taken over by certain, I don't know how to call it, but I would not call it a culture, but by a certain agenda, by a certain ideology, which disguises itself as a religious ideology. And the Western world in general does not have the tools to handle it in its majority. I mean, most of the countries in Europe do not have the proper tools in order to put limits and to limit this kind of ideology from taking over. So the same takeover over areas in Jerusalem, which are, of course, Jewish heritage areas, areas of predominantly Jewish history. The same process is now faced by countries in Europe. In Sweden, in many other countries in Europe, there is a rape pandemic. Women cannot go out from the streets in certain neighborhoods. People are afraid to go with alcoholic beverages, with beer in Europe, because they are afraid to walk in neighborhoods in which this is offensive towards the so-called religion of Islam. And it starts becoming a global issue to be able to handle this kind of agendas. So it's no longer an issue located in the few cubits of Temple Mount, and outside from this everything is fantastic. This is not so. And when you want to deal with an ideology, when you want to deal with an agenda, when you want to deal with a religion, or something that presents itself as a religion, or as a religious movement, or as a religious ideology, especially if this ideology comes and says that it wants to dominate the world and not just Temple Mount, you should figure out this ideology in the core, to go to the core and figure out from where this ideology comes, and what is its roots. And this has to do with what I said in the beginning, that in our time, most people do not have the tools and the proper information in order to do exactly that. Because in a very suspicious manner, the media not only does not give the population in countries like Europe, in countries like in the countries of Europe, like England, like France, like Sweden, Germany, and so on, the proper information and the proper tools about this agenda and this ideology. They many times hide the proper information, and by so not only assisting and adding fuel to the problem, they actually create a vacuum in which this religion can mutate, simply mutate, and present itself even as something that it is not originally so. So it can be in the vacuum created by the general uneducated population. Such harmful ideologies can even mutate and become even more radicalized. Can become even more radicalized because they are not faced by facts regarding their own beliefs. And in Israel, we have this problem in an even more acute manner. Because in Israel, the problem is even more acute, as everybody knows. Because thankfully, Europe is still not being bombarded by bombs created by terrorist militias. But who knows where things would head if things would not be taken care of here in our region. So, as I said, facts are maybe the most important issue here, and that may be the most important ammunition that people should have in this war, because at the end of the day, this is a war of ideas. This is a war of ideologies that begins from this platform and cascades to the more practical corporal matters. So, first of all, about Temple Mount. One of the most important facts that people should know is that the media mispresents the geography of Temple Mount. And they present the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is on Temple Mount, as some sort of conflict or confrontation issue between Jews and Muslims. So first and foremost, we must say that this fact is a lie. This is simply not true. For a very simple reason, that the region where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is located is of absolutely no importance and no special meaning for the Jewish religion. The Al-Aqsa, and even more so, the problem is that the image that the current media puts in people's mind of the Al-Aqsa Mosque is simply the wrong building. When people think about the Al-Aqsa Mosque, they think about the Golden Dome. And the Golden Dome and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are two different buildings. So, in summary, the building which is holy for the Muslims, even though the Golden Dome is much more, is a very beautiful building, but it is not the mosque. And when people think about the Al-Aqsa Mosque, most people, if you will go in the street and make a survey, they will think that the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the Golden Dome. And by the way, there are even Muslims or Arabs which think in this manner, because of course when you go into a place, you think that the most fancy and the most beautiful and the most eye-catching building is for sure the most holy one. But this is not true. The real building which is holy for the Muslims is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is located in the far regions of the Temple Mount, in a place which is originally for Jews. So people must understand, in terms of true religious sites, putting politics aside, putting wars aside, putting the interests of evil warmongers that have nothing to do with religion, in terms of religion, at least from the point of view of Judaism, and I can testify that it is also the point of view of true Islam, the two sites which are of importance for both religions on the Temple Mount are two separate sites. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, holy for the Muslims, is in the region which is not of special holiness for Jews, while the place of special importance in the Jewish religion for Judaism, meaning the place in which the temple, the original temple, was originally located, the first and second temple, are two separate sites, two separate things. And the media is planting within people's mind, and especially people which are uneducated, the idea as if there is, or at least from the side of Judaism, some sort of confrontation or a conflict about between the two religions, as if either Judaism predominates there or Islam predominates there, and there should be some war between the two religions. And this is very dangerous. This misinformation is very dangerous because it's pushing towards a religious war, a holy war, which does not exist. It exists only in the mind of uneducated people. It exists only in the minds of uneducated people. And aside from this, I will tell you even more, that the historical testimonies, the historical evidence that we have in books, not just Jewish books, but also Muslim books, is that originally, intentionally so, the buildings, the Muslim buildings, were originally built in such a manner, in order so that there will not be a confrontation between the two religions. Meaning that the original Muslim leaders, which built originally the Temple Mosque, built this intentionally, out of making the proper measurements in order so that there will never be such a confrontation. And people are currently using the misinformation of the general public, of the global general public, in order to create and push into an unnecessary war of religions for their own interests and benefits, which God knows what's there. So this is a crucial fact. And nobody ever really interviews the proper authorities. It will be like you will go to some things that requires extreme expertise, And instead of interviewing a brain surgeon about how to make a brain surgery, you will interview a random person in the street. It is clear that the patient will die. You don't do this kind of things. So this is fact number one. And I think that it is a very crucial fact for most people to know if they want to have a decent discussion about this subject. Because again, in Judaism is very clear about this subject. There is proper measurements of the place which is holy for Judaism. It's no confrontation with Islam. Fact number two. The current Arab agenda with respect to Temple Mount is that they start to voice claims as if Temple Mount, which is they call the Al-Aqsa domain, has never had a temple on it. There are Arab politicians and Arab representatives which are associated with the Palestinian movements that start raising the claim that the existence of the temple on Temple Mount is a fabrication. Now this is preposterous. This is a preposterous claim. And it is preposterous, first of all, because, well, it's preposterous. And second of all, because these people claim to be Muslim. They claim to be Muslim. But the misinformed public can sit and listen to the ridiculous claims that they are protecting the Al-Aqsa Mosque, they are protecting Islam, they are protecting the interests of all Muslims in the world over Jerusalem. But the general uneducated public is unaware that this is a blunt, broad daylight lie, even just with respect to Islam. This is in contradiction to Islam. And we can give you the following proofs, because that is what I said, that when people are uneducated, such terroristic movements can radicalize to such an extreme that they even start lying about the things they claim to represent. Because when nobody comes and demands that these terrorists, which are non-Muslims, these are not Muslim representatives, even in terms of Islam, they are not Muslims. These Palestinian nationalists, or whatever you want to call them, terrorists that speak in the name of Islam, they are not Muslims. Because this is in contradiction to Islam. To pure Islam, this is contradicting. To say a statement, to say such a statement voiced by the current Palestinians, that they want to protect Al-Aqsa because the temple, the existence of the temple is Jewish mythology, is heretic against Islam. Let's prove it. First of all, Muslims, at least according to what they say, they believe in the existence of Christianity. They believed in the existence of the stories of the New Testament. The temple is mentioned in the New Testament, not to mention that it is mentioned in the Bible, that they claim that is the Holy Book. Let's say that they would say that the New Testament has been altered, that the Bible has been altered. The two temples are mentioned in the Quran. They are mentioned in the Surah of the night travel of Muhammad to Temple Mount. The destruction is mentioned in the Quran. You can read it by yourself. So the people that claim that Al-Aqsa is a predominantly Muslim site from thousands of years ago, even though Islam exists only for a few hundred of years, are simply lying about Islam. They are heretic against Islam because the Quran itself mentions the temples. So they have never read the Quran. So they claim jihad in the name of Quran. They claim to be the forefront of some holy war in the name of the Quran, but they never read the book. Because the temples are mentioned in the Quran. Aside from this, you must understand that the term Al-Aqsa itself, the Al-Aqsa itself is mentioned in the Quran. But everybody knows that the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the building which is holy for the Muslims, currently built in Jerusalem, and that is holy for them, the building itself, the mosque itself, that is on Temple Mount in Jerusalem, did not exist in the time of Muhammad. This is a fact. The temple was only the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the building itself that is currently in Temple Mount in Jerusalem, has only been built many years after the death of Muhammad. This is an historical fact. But yet, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is mentioned in the Quran. So what is the Al-Aqsa Mosque that is mentioned in the Quran? So the reason is very simple. In Islam and in Arabic, the word mosque, the word misgad, the masjid, means in general a holy site, not necessarily Muslim. Because when the Muslims the Arabs refer to holy sites, including Jewish sites, they call them masjid, they call them misgad. And the Al-Aqsa Mosque mentioned in the Quran refers to the sites of the destroyed Jewish temple. This is the truth about the term Al-Aqsa Mosque, and it is called Al-Aqsa because in Arabic Al-Aqsa means the distant mosque, the distant holy site. Because when Muhammad lived, he lived in the Arabic regions. For them, the Jewish site of Jerusalem was Al-Aqsa, was the most holiest, farthest place to the west of them, because they were in the east, and it was the most western holy site, which was the destroyed temple in Jerusalem. And when it is written that Muhammad went with his horse to Al-Aqsa, it means to the site of the destroyed Jewish temple. And if you will read the Muslim accounts of what they believe happened when he flew to Jerusalem, you will see that it describes, indeed in mystical terms, him entering through the gates of the skies and seeing them, the Jewish religious authorities, like Prophet Moses, and getting from him religious advice. That's what happened when Muhammad came to, according to Muslim faith, to Al-Aqsa, which is the site of the destroyed temple. And that's the true interpretation of this surah. And until today, the Muslims, the true names that they call Jerusalem is Bet el-Mikdash, which means in Hebrew, temple, means Bet HaMikdash. When we call in Hebrew the temple, we say Bet HaMikdash, and they call Jerusalem Bet el-Mikdash. But in the media, this term is never mentioned, because they have shortened the term Bet el-Mikdash, they call El-Quds, in order to hide the fact that the term El-Quds is an abbreviation of Bet el-Mikdash, so that they could, the radical nationalistic terrorist organizations, which are not Muslim, could hide the fact that in Arabic the Jerusalem is called Bet el-Mikdash, to commemorate the existence of the Jewish temple. Disinformation created only for warmongering. And people need to understand, the original Palestinian movement was not a Muslim movement. Arafat was not a devout Muslim. He was even the testimonies of what we know about his life. I will not mention it here, but that he was far, far, far away from being a devoted Muslim. And like so Abu Mazen, and like so many of the so-called parliament members here in Israel that are Arab representatives and supposedly represent the Palestinian cause are not devoted Muslims. They use Islam in a fraudulent and heretic manner. So you can say that this is not enough evidence for the things we see. I can give further evidence that the current situation in Temple Mount is not a religious issue, it's a fabrication, it's disguising itself as Islam, but it is not Islam. It is disguising for political, evil purposes. And this must be understood. So I give you a further evidence. There is a document printed in English, signed by the Supreme Muslim Council of Jerusalem. And this document is from 1925. And this is a document in which they wrote a touristic, a guide for tourists for Temple Mount. It's written in English, it is published, you can see it today on the internet, it is available to any person that wishes to see. And again, this was written by the Supreme Muslim Council, by the Waqf itself. The council that is responsible for the handling of the Muslim holy sites in the land of Israel. And in this document is written clearly that the Temple Mount is the site of the Temple of Solomon. They wrote it in their own words. So what, Islam changed in 100 years? Before the country of Israel existed, they wrote, it is without doubt, without dispute, the site of the Temple of Solomon. And they even quote from the Bible, they quote from the book of Samuel, from the Jewish book of Samuel. And they say this is according to universal belief, the site of the Temple of Solomon. And suddenly, after the establishment of the country of Israel and millions of dollars funding the Palestinian cause, suddenly Islam changed. The temple is Jewish mythology. If we don't want the world to go into a so-called holy war, we should start checking what the books really say, so that all sorts of warmongers would not drag us to unnecessary wars. And when you have a document printed by the Supreme Muslim Council from 1925, which says that according to Islam, the place of the Temple Mount is without dispute, according to universal belief, the place of the Temple of Solomon, and you have currently all sorts of militant Arab politicians telling you the otherwise, and they by themselves never saw a mosque in the last, 20 years. To who would you believe? This is not Jews saying that. This is a Muslim document. And we should ask ourselves, where were these facts? The disappearance of these facts is gives the soil for the growth of terrorism, for the growth of lies, for the growth of disinformation. Disinformation is very critical. It's critical for a true understanding of the situation. By the way, today, Jews can hardly enter the Temple Mount. They can hardly drink from the water there. In this touristic guide was dedicated, printed again by the Supreme Muslim Council, was dedicated to Muslims, Christians, and Jews to come and visit Temple Mount, invited by the Supreme Muslim Council. So what changed in a matter of 100 years? You want to tell me that the existence of the country of Israel is what changed the issue? Not from the point of view of Islam. Religions do not change. What changed is the false use of religion for political gains, for warmongering, for the creation of unnecessary confrontations and conflicts. And you see, when you open the true books truly, you see that this is not the truth. And we can give further many other more evidence for the amount of disinformation spread in order to push the region into war. This war is only possible through disinformation. So dear friends, thank you very much for listening, and please share this video if you think that it is valuable. Thank you very much. Have a good morning.